The transport shuttle docked with a soft hiss at the Galactic Alliance research station. Dr. Minho Kang pressed his face against the small window, watching the massive structure rotate slowly against the purple and green planet below. Kravith Prime looked beautiful from orbit, but Minho knew the surface was home to one of the galaxy's most feared warrior species. He grabbed his research bag and stepped into the docking bay. The air smelled different here, sharp and metallic. Strange sounds echoed through the corridors. Minho had studied 17 different alien species during his career as a xenobiologist. But this assignment made him nervous for the first time in years. A woman in a crisp diplomatic uniform waited near the entrance. She smiled when she saw him, but her eyes looked tired. "Dr. Kang, I'm Ambassador Hana Lee. Welcome to the worst assignment in human space." Minho laughed, thinking she was joking. Hannah did not laugh back. "I'm serious," she said, leading him down a long corridor. "The Kravathi don't like us. They don't like anyone, really. But they especially don't trust humans because we're small and soft, and we smile too much." "I've read the briefing files," Minho said. "They're a warrior culture. Honor-based society. They respect strength and direct confrontation." "The files don't tell you everything," Hana replied. She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Listen carefully. Never show fear, but never challenge them directly. Don't smile at them. Don't try to be friendly. And whatever you do, don't touch them without permission. They see uninvited touch as either a threat or an insult." Minho nodded, making mental notes. Hannah's worry was clear in every word. They entered a large observation deck. Through the curved windows, Minho could see other sections of the station. Various alien species moved through the corridors beyond. But his attention fixed on the three large figures standing in the center of the room. The Kravathi were magnificent. They stood over 2 meters tall on powerful legs. Their bodies were covered in fur that seemed to shimmer with tiny crystals, reflecting the station lights in rainbow patterns. Their faces looked feline, with large eyes and pronounced fangs. But these were not cute Earth cats. These were apex predators wearing clothes and speaking in low, rumbling voices. The largest Kravathi turned to face them. His fur was deep silver, marked with scars from old battles. His eyes were amber and sharp. "Ambassador Lee," he said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "This is the human scientist?" "Commander Thaval," Hana said with a respectful nod. "May I present Dr. Minho Kang, xenobiologist. He will be studying cross-species social behaviors during his stay." Tharval looked Minho up and down. The alien's lip curled slightly, showing more of his crystalline fangs. "Another soft human. Your kind is weak. You understand this, yes?" Minho kept his face neutral, remembering Hana's warnings. "I understand the Kravathi value physical strength. Humans value different things. Yes, talking, always talking." Tharval made a sound that might have been a laugh. "We will see how your words help you here." Before Minho could respond, 3 smaller figures rushed into the room. They were young Kravathi, maybe half the size of the adults. Their crystalline fur was brighter, their movements more energetic. They lined up in front of Tharval, standing at attention. "These are the cubs," Tharval said. His voice held a note of pride. "Velron, Shakir, and Nixar. They complete their dominance training this week." Minho studied the 3 young Kravathi with professional interest. Velron was the largest, with dark blue fur. Shakir had bright silver fur and seemed unable to stand completely still. Nexora was the smallest, with black fur that sparkled like the night sky. "Dominance training?" Minho asked. "The right of dominance," Hana whispered. "All Kravathi cubs must master the predator stare before they're considered adults. It's their most important cultural tradition." Tharval heard her explanation. "Yes, the predator stare establishes order. It shows who is strong and who is weak. These cubs have trained for months. Soon they will demonstrate their skill before the entire station. He turned to the cubs. Show positions. The three young Cravathi immediately changed their posture. Their eyes began to glow with an inner light. Their lips pulled back to show all their fangs. A low, threatening sound came from their throats. Even though Minho knew they were just children practicing, his heart beat faster. Some deep part of his brain recognized predators when it saw them. "Good," Tharvel said. "You will perfect this. Soon you will make all the weak species bow before you." The cubs relaxed, looking pleased with themselves. Negzara noticed Minho watching and immediately tried to stare again, her eyes glowing brighter. She wanted to impress the new alien. Minho's professional fascination grew. The behavior reminded him of something, but he couldn't quite place it. The way they held their posture, the sound they made, even the glowing eyes had parallels to Earth species he'd studied. "The demonstration will be in 3 days," Tharvel announced. "All station personnel will attend. The cubs will test their predator stare on representatives from each species. It is tradition." He looked directly at Minho. "Perhaps we will test it on you, human. We will see if you are brave or just foolish." Hannah tensed beside Minho, but he remained calm. "I look forward to learning more about Cravathi culture." Tharvel made that grinding laugh sound again. "You will learn. Everyone learns, eventually." As they left the observation deck, Hannah grabbed Minho's arm. That wasn't a casual suggestion. "He's going to make you face those cubs. It's a power play. If you show fear, every Cravathi on this station will treat you like prey." Minho looked back through the window. The 3 cubs were practicing again, their young faces fierce with concentration. "I understand," he said, but even as he spoke, Minho felt a smile trying to form. He pushed it down quickly. Those cubs, despite their fangs and glowing eyes and warrior training, reminded him of something very specific from Earth. They reminded him of kittens trying to look tough. He absolutely could not let anyone know he thought that. 3 days passed quickly. Minho spent his time exploring the research station and observing different alien species. He took careful notes about social hierarchies and greeting behaviors. He noticed how most species gave the Cravathi a wide path in the corridors. He saw how conversations stopped when Cravathi warriors entered a room. The station operated on fear, and everyone pretended that was normal. On the morning of the demonstration, Minho received a message on his communication device. It was from Jiho Park, another human scientist working at a different facility. They had studied together years ago and remained friends. "I heard about the cub ceremony," Jiho's message said. "Minho, please be careful. Follow protocol exactly. Don't do anything creative or unexpected. Just bow your head and let them have their moment." Minho smiled at his friend's concern, but he appreciated it. Jiho knew him well enough to worry. The ceremony took place in the station's largest gathering hall. Representatives from a dozen species filled the seats. Minho recognized some from his studies. The tall insectoid Chitauri with their clicking language. The blob-like Morphans who communicated through color changes. The bird-like Virax with their bright feathers. All of them looked nervous. Hannah found Minho near the back. "Stay close to me. When they call you up, walk slowly. Keep your head level, not up or down. When the cubs do the predator stare, count to 5, then lower your eyes and bow your head. That's the proper response." "Understood," Minho said. Tharvel stood at the front of the hall with the 3 cubs beside him. Other adult Cravathi lined the walls, watching with pride. This was clearly an important tradition for them. "Today marks the completion of the rite of dominance," Tharvel announced. His voice carried easily through the hall. "These cubs have trained to master the predator stare. The the gift of our ancestors. They will now demonstrate their skill. The ceremony began. One by one, representatives from different species were called forward. Each time, the 3 cubs would position themselves around the individual and activate their stare. Their eyes glowed. Their fangs showed. The threatening growl filled the air. Each representative responded the same way. They froze. They lowered their heads. They submitted. The Kravathi adults watched with approval. The cubs grew more confident with each success. Then Tarval's gaze swept the room and stopped on Minho, the human scientist. "Come forward." Minho felt every eye in the room turn to him. Hana's hand briefly touched his arm, a silent wish for good luck. He walked down the aisle, maintaining a steady pace. His heart beat faster, but his face remained calm. He reached the front and stood before the 3 cubs. Up close, he could see their nervousness beneath the fierce expressions. Valron kept flexing his claws. Shakir's tail twitched. Nixara's ears flicked back and forth. They wanted to succeed. They wanted to make their elders proud. Minho found that touching. "Begin," Tharval commanded. The 3 cubs moved into position, surrounding Minho. They planted their feet wide. Their backs arched. Then their eyes began to glow with that eerie inner light. Blue light from Velron, silver from Shakir, deep purple from Nixara. The growl started low in their throats. Their lips pulled back, revealing rows of crystalline fangs that caught the light. Their fur stood on end, making them look larger. The threat display was complete. Minho was supposed to feel fear. His body did respond with a faster heartbeat and a burst of adrenaline. But his mind did something else entirely. He looked at Velron's 2 big paws that he hadn't quite grown into. He saw Shakir struggling to hold the growl without taking a breath. He noticed Nixara's tail swishing in a pattern that betrayed her excitement. These weren't warriors. These were babies. Fuzzy, adorable babies who were trying so hard to look dangerous. Minho's eyes widened, but not with fear. With delight. "Oh my God," he whispered. "You're adorable." The hall went silent. The cubs' growls faltered. They intensified their display, confused. Their eyes glowed brighter. The growls grew louder. They had never encountered this response before. From somewhere in the crowd, Jiho's voice came through someone's communication device. "Minho, no. Don't do it. Whatever you're thinking, don't." But Minho wasn't thinking about protocol anymore. He was thinking about his childhood cat, Machi. He was thinking about every kitten video he'd ever watched. He was thinking about how universal certain behaviors seemed across species. He slowly lowered himself to kneel, bringing himself closer to the cub's eye level. This was the opposite of what he was supposed to do. Hannah made a small sound of distress from the audience. "Look at you," Minho said softly. "You're practicing so hard." "Who's a fierce little hunter?" Darval's fur bristled. "Human, you will show respect." But Minho wasn't listening. He was completely focused on the 3 confused cubs in front of him. Their predator's stare was wavering. They didn't understand why this alien was looking at them with such warmth and interest. Velron tried to stare harder, his young face scrunched with effort. Shakir's growl cracked slightly, more like a cough. Nixara tilted her head, her threatening posture slipping just a bit. The professional part of Minha's brain noted all of this. The emotional part of his brain simply saw 3 children who needed encouragement and affection. He reached out slowly. The entire hall held its breath. Even the cubs froze, unsure what was happening. Minho gently touched Valron's nose with the tip of his finger. Boop dot, then Shakir's nose. Boop dot, then Nexara's nose. Boop dot. The soft touch on their sensitive noses broke through years of warrior conditioning. It triggered responses that had nothing to do with dominance or fear. It triggered something much more basic and universal. Before anyone could react, Minho leaned forward and kissed each cub gently on the forehead, right between their glowing eyes. "Yes, you are," he cooed. "You're all such good cubs." "Yes, you are." The glowing in the cub's eyes flickered and went out like someone had flipped a switch. Valron sat down heavily, his mouth slightly open in shock. Shakir made a sound that was definitely not a growl. It was a purr, loud and involuntary and completely mortifying for a warrior cub. Nixar's tail, which had been held stiff and threatening, started to swish back and forth in a happy, pleased pattern. The hall erupted in chaos. Tharvel roared in outrage. Other Kravathi adults shouted in their grinding voices. The non-Kravathi species started talking all at once, some frightened, some amazed. Hannah stood up, her face pale. "Commander Tharvel, I apologize profusely. This was not." Minho ignored all of it. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small container. "I brought treats," he said to the cubs. "They're made from earth proteins. I've been testing them on the station cats. Do you want to try one?" 3 pairs of eyes locked onto the container. 3 noses twitched. 3 young Kravathi leaned forward, their warrior training completely forgotten. Tharvel's roar shook the walls. "Get that human out of here." Security arrived within minutes, but the damage was already done. Minho sat in a small conference room with Hannah, while Tharvel paced like an angry storm. 2 other adult Kravathi stood near the door, their arms crossed and their faces showing clear disapproval. "Months of training," Tharvel snarled. "Months." The cubs were perfect. They had mastered the predator stare. Every species on this station feared and respected them. "And you?" He pointed at Minho with one clawed finger. "You ruined everything in 30 seconds. Hannah tried to speak calmly. "Commander, Dr. Kang meant no disrespect. Humans have strong, nurturing instincts toward young creatures. It's a biological response." He couldn't help. He kissed them. Tharvel interrupted. He touched their noses. He called them adorable. Shakir purred. "Do you understand what that means?" A warrior cub does not purr. Ever. Minho had been quiet, but now he spoke up. "With respect, Commander, purring is an involuntary physiological response. It indicates contentment, and I know what purring means." Tharval's roar rattled the conference room windows. He took a breath, his crystalline fur bristling. "Purring is for infants. For cubs too young to understand danger. My warriors must be feared, not cuddled?" Minho suggested helpfully. Hannah closed her eyes and made a small sound of despair. Tharvel leaned over the table, bringing his face close to Minho's. His amber eyes blazed. His fangs showed fully. It was meant to be terrifying, and part of Minho did feel a spike of fear. But a larger part of his brain noted the patterns in Tharval's fur, the way his ears pinned back, the tension in his shoulders. "You think this is funny, human?" Tharvel said quietly. The quiet was somehow worse than the shouting. "No," Minho said honestly. "I think it's sad." The room went very still. The 2 Kravathi guards by the door looked shocked. Hannah's eyes went wide. Even Tharvel seemed surprised. "Sad?" He repeated. Mem-Ho nodded. "Those cubs worked hard. They're clearly intelligent and dedicated. But you're teaching them that fear is the only form of respect. That's not strength, Commander. That's just fear wearing a mask." Tharvel straightened up slowly. "You dare lecture me about strength? You, who are barely half my size, who has no claws, no fangs, no armor." "Yes," Minho said, "because I'm not afraid of you." The words hung in the air. Hannah looked like she might faint. But Minho continued, his voice steady. "I'm cautious, yes. Respectful, absolutely. But not afraid. Fear and respect aren't the same thing. And those cubs deserve to know the difference. Before Thorval could respond, there was a commotion outside the conference room. Raised voices. A scuffle. Then the door slid open and 3 small figures burst inside. The cubs had escaped their handlers. Velron spotted Minho immediately. His eyes lit up, but not with the threatening glow from before. With recognition and something that looked like joy. He bounded across the room, his 2 big paws sliding on the smooth floor. "No," Thorval commanded. "Velron, return to your quarters." But Velron wasn't listening. He reached Minho and pressed his crystalline face against the human's arm, making a soft chirping sound. Shakir and Nixara followed close behind. Within seconds, all 3 cubs had surrounded Minho, touching him, making soft sounds, their tails swishing happily. "This is exactly what I'm talking about." Thorval gestured at the scene. "Look at them. They're acting like infants. They should be proud warriors." Minho slowly reached out and stroked Velron's head. The cub leaned into the touch, eyes closing in contentment. "They're children," Minho said gently. "Can't they be both? Young and training to be warriors, but also allowed to be young?" One of the guards near the door, a younger Kravathi with bright orange fur, made a small sound. When everyone looked at him, he quickly returned to neutral expression. But Minho had seen it. A moment of agreement. Tar single quotes Val saw it too. His expression darkened. "Guards, remove the cubs. Now." 2 adult Kravathi entered and tried to pull the cubs away. But the cubs resisted. Nexara wrapped her small arms around Minho's leg. Shakir pressed himself against Minho's side. Velron made a low, distressed sound. "Please," Minho said. "Let me talk to them." "Absolutely not," Thorval said. "You've done enough damage." "Commander," Hana said carefully. "Perhaps letting them speak would help calm the situation. Dr. Kang clearly has some influence over the cubs. We could use that to what? Make them weaker?" Thorval turned away, his tail lashing. "The cubs will be separated from all humans until they can be retrained. This incident will be reported to the Galactic Council. Dr. Kang will be removed from this station." Minho felt the cubs pressing closer to him, as if sensing the threat of separation. Velron looked up at him with those large eyes, no longer trying to be fierce. Just confused and upset. In that moment, Minho made a decision. "I request a formal hearing." Everyone stopped. Thorval turned back slowly. "What?" "A formal hearing," Minho repeated. "According to Galactic Alliance regulations, any cultural disagreement between species can be brought before a neutral arbiter. I'm formally requesting that right." Hana stared at him. "Minho, that's extremely rare. It could take weeks to—" "The human is trying to avoid consequences," Thorval said. "Typical." "No," Minho said. "I'm trying to help those cubs. And maybe help your entire species understand something important." He looked directly at Thorval. "You say I ruined their training. I say I showed them a different kind of strength. Let's let a neutral party decide which of us is right." Thorval's claws extended slightly. "You challenge our ways." "I question them," Minho corrected. "There's a difference." The commander studied Minho for a long moment. Then he looked at the 3 cubs, who had finally gone quiet, watching the adults with worried expressions. Shakir's tail was tucked down. Nexara's ears were flat. Velron kept glancing between Minho and Thorval, trying to understand what was happening. "Fine," Thorval said finally. "You will have your hearing. But until then, you will have no contact with the cubs. They will remain in the warrior quarters. And if the arbiter rules against you, you will leave this station and never return." "Agreed?" Minho felt the cubs tense against him. He gently stroked each of their heads one more time. "Agreed." The guards moved in and carefully separated the cubs from Minho. This time, the cubs didn't resist, but they looked back at him as they were led away. Velron's ears drooped. Shakir made one soft, sad sound. Nexarizio's tail dragged on the floor. When they were gone, Hana turned to Minho. "What did you just do?" "I bought us time," Minho said, "and maybe started a conversation that this station needs to have." Darval left without another word, his guards following. When the door closed, Hana slumped in her chair. "A formal hearing," she said. "Do you have any idea what you've started?" Minho smiled slightly. "I think I just made 3 friends. And possibly started a diplomatic incident." "Definitely the second thing," Hana said. "Possibly both." The hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. In that time, the station changed in subtle but noticeable ways. Minho was confined to the human quarters and his lab. He could move between those areas but was forbidden from entering the warrior sections where the cubs lived. Security cameras tracked his movements constantly. 2 Kravathi guards stood outside his door at all times, but information traveled through the station in other ways. On the 3rd day of his confinement, Minho received a secure communication from Dr. Yuna Choi, a human xenopsychologist at the Galactic Medical Institute. She had heard about the incident and wanted to help. "I've studied Kravathi psychology for years," Yuna explained through the video call. "Their entire social structure is built on dominance hierarchies. But there's something most outsiders don't know. Many younger Kravathi are questioning these traditions." "Really?" Minho leaned forward, interested. Yuna nodded. "They don't dare speak openly about it. Challenging tradition is seen as weakness. But I've treated several young Kravathi for what they called honor sickness, depression, anxiety, feeling trapped by expectations. The old ways work for some, but not everyone." She sent him files of research data, carefully anonymized. "Use this at your hearing. Show them that strength can come in many forms." Minho studied the data late into the night. The patterns were clear. Kravathi, who had positive interactions with other species, showed better mental health outcomes. Those who relied only on fear-based relationships reported feeling isolated and stressed. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening in the warrior quarters. Hana came to visit Minho on the 5th day. She looked tired but excited. "You need to hear this," she said, checking to make sure no guards were listening. "The cubs are refusing to eat." "What?" Minho stood up quickly. "Are they sick?" "No, they're protesting." Hana smiled slightly. "They refuse to continue their training. They keep asking when they can see the nice human with the treats. The instructors are furious." Minho felt a mix of concern and pride. "They shouldn't starve themselves for me." "They're not starving. They eat a little, enough to stay healthy. But they won't cooperate with the dominance retraining. Velron keeps sitting down in the middle of exercises. Shakir makes that purring sound whenever anyone mentions you. Nixar keeps drawing pictures of you on her datapad." Despite his worry, Minho couldn't help but smile at that. "How is Tharval handling this?" "Badly," Hana said. But here's the interesting part. Some of the younger adult Kravathi are starting to question things too. Quietly, carefully. But I've heard whispers in the corridors. She showed him a recording from the station's public forum. A young Kravathi named Krisha had posted a question. "If our strength is absolute, why is one small human frighten us so much?" The post had been deleted within an hour, but not before dozens of Kravathi had seen it. Some had even quietly agreed. On the 8th day, Sunwoo contacted Minho. Sunwoo was a human security officer assigned to the station's neutral zones. He had access to information others didn't. "The other species are talking," Sunwoo said over a secure channel. "They're saying they never really respected the Kravathi. They just feared them. And now that they've seen the cubs choose affection over dominance, they're wondering why they've been so afraid all this time. That could be dangerous, Minho said. If the Cravathi feel their authority is threatened, some are angry, yes. But some are listening. Some will send him a file. I recorded this conversation in the mess hall yesterday. 3 Cravathi adults discussing what happened. I think you should hear it. Minho played the recording. 3 voices, speaking in the Cravathi language with his translator, converting it to human speech. The human showed no fear, one voice said. That is strength, is it not? No, another replied. Strength is making others fear you. But the cubs feared nothing when they were with him. The first voice continued. They felt safe, protected. Is that not also a form of strength? To make others feel protected rather than threatened. You speak heresy, the third voice said. But it sounded uncertain. The conversation had ended there. But Minho played it 3 more times, listening carefully to each word. On the 10th day, disaster struck in an unexpected way. Alarms blared through the station. Minho was in his quarters when Hannah burst in, her face pale. There's been an accident in the lower maintenance section. A coolant leak. 3 workers are trapped, including one of the cubs. What? Minho's heart jumped. Which one? Nexara. She snuck away from her quarters and went exploring. When the leak happened, she got sealed in with 2 Chitauri workers. Minho was already moving toward the door. The guards blocked his path. You are confined, one said. There's a child in danger, Minho said. Move. Minho didn't have time for this. He ducked under the guard's arm and ran. He heard shouting behind him, but didn't stop. He knew the station layout from his studies. The maintenance section was 3 levels down, but he reached the emergency response area to find chaos. Tarval was there, arguing with the response team. The coolant leak was toxic to Cravathi. Their biology couldn't handle the chemical compounds. The emergency team was trying to seal the leak remotely, but the controls were damaged. Someone has to go in manually, a technician said. But any Cravathi who enters that area will die within minutes from exposure. The Chitauri can survive it, another voice said. But they're the ones trapped. They can't help from inside. Darval's face showed anguish. His cub was trapped, and he couldn't reach her. Minho pushed through the crowd. I can go. Everyone turned to look at him. Tharval's eyes widened. You? Human biology is compatible with the coolant compounds, Minho said quickly. I'll need a basic respirator for the concentration levels, but I can survive long enough to seal the leak and get them out. The head technician, a Morphin, checked his datapad. He's correct. Humans can tolerate those chemicals for approximately 20 minutes. How long will it take? Tharval demanded. 15 minutes if everything goes perfectly, the technician said. But if anything goes wrong, I'll be fine, Minho said. He looked at Tharval. Let me save her. The commander stood frozen for a moment. Then he nodded once, sharp and quick. Do it. They suited Minho up in protective gear and a respirator. They gave him a communication device and detailed instructions. The clock started the moment the door opened. The maintenance area was filled with greenish mist. Minho could hear coughing from deeper in the corridor. He followed the sound and found the trapped workers. 2 Chitauri were huddled in a corner, their breathing labored. And there, pressed between them for protection, was Nixara. The small cub's eyes went wide when she saw him. Minho? Hey there, little hunter, Minho said gently. Let's get you all out of here, okay? He guided the Chitauri workers toward the exit while explaining the manual seal procedure over his communication device. With the technician's help, he found the damaged controls and started the repair sequence. His hands shook slightly. The respirator made breathing difficult. But he kept working. 30 minutes in, the seal activated. The green mist began to clear. 14 minutes. And the Chitauri workers made it to safety. 15 minutes. And Minho picked up Nixara, who had refused to leave without him, and carried her out. They emerged to cheers from the gathered crowd. Medical teams rushed forward. But Nixara clung to Minho, her small face pressed against his chest. Darvel approached slowly. He looked at his cub, safe in a human's arms. Then he looked at Minho. "You risked your life," the commander said quietly, "for a Cravathi cub. After everything that happened?" Minho, exhausted and shaking from adrenaline, just smiled. "She's a good kid." "They all are." Darvel reached out and carefully took his cub from Minho's arms. But before he turned away, he did something unexpected. He bowed his head slightly to Minho. Just a small nod. Barely noticeable, but everyone saw it. The most fearsome warrior on the station had just shown respect to a human dot, and he had done it not through dominance, but through gratitude. The hearing took place in the station's council chamber 2 days after the rescue. A galactic arbiter arrived from the Central Alliance headquarters, a wise and ancient being called Counselor Vex. She belonged to a species that looked like floating jellyfish with glowing tendrils. She had mediated conflicts for over 200 years. The chamber was packed. Representatives from every species on the station attended. The Cravathi filled one side of the room. Humans and other species filled the other. At the front, Minho sat at one table while Tharvel sat at another. The 3 cubs were there too, seated in a special area with other young Cravathi. They kept looking at Minho. Velronda's tail swished hopefully. Shakir sat very still, trying to behave. Nixara, who had barely left her father's side since the rescue, watched everything with wide eyes. Counselor Vex's voice was melodic and calm. "We are here to address a cultural dispute between Dr. Minho Kang of Earth and Commander Tharvel of Kravith Prime. The question before us is whether Dr. Kang's actions during the rite of dominant ceremony were harmful or helpful. Commander, please present your position." Tharvel stood. His military bearing was perfect, his voice strong. The human interfered with a sacred tradition. The predator stare is how we establish order and hierarchy. It has served my people for thousands of years. Without it, we lose our identity as warriors. Without fear, we have no respect. He gestured to the cubs. These 3 spent months training. They were perfect. And in seconds, this human destroyed their confidence. He made them act like infants instead of warriors. He turned strength into weakness. Murmurs ran through the Cravathi side of the room. Nods of agreement. Counselor Vex turned her floating form to Minho. "Dr. Kang, your response?" Minho stood slowly. His legs still ached from the rescue mission. "I didn't mean to disrespect your traditions, Commander. I reacted instinctively because I saw children, not warriors. And I think that's the key point here. They are children." He pulled up images on the large display screen. Videos from Earth showing human children learning, playing, growing. On Earth, we learned something important. Children need 2 things to become strong adults. They need challenges and discipline, yes, but they also need safety and affection. One without the other creates broken adults. More images appeared. Studies, data, research from Dr. Yuna Choi's files. Look at this data from Cravathi, who live in mixed species communities. Those who form bonds of affection alongside bonds of respect show better mental health, stronger social connections, and yes, even better combat performance. Because they're fighting for something they love, not just maintaining something they fear. Darvela's fur bristled. You use data like it means more than tradition. Our ways have survived for. I'm not saying your ways are wrong, Minho interrupted gently. I'm saying they're incomplete. You teach strength through fear. Humans teach strength through bonds. What if both are right? What if the strongest warriors are the ones who know how to be fierce and how to be gentle? He looked directly at the cubs. Laurent, Shakir, Nixara, can you come here? The three cubs looked at their elders for permission. Tharvel hesitated, then nodded. They walked to the front of the chamber, standing between Minho and their commander. Show them the predator's stare, Minho said softly. Like you've been taught. The cubs looked surprised, but they obeyed. They turned to face the audience, planted their feet, and activated their display. Eyes glowing, fangs showing, the threatening growl building in their throats. It was perfect. Every representative in the audience felt that instinctive fear response. Even Minho felt his heart rate increase. Now, Minho said, and he knelt down beside them. He gently placed a hand on each cub's head. Show them what you showed me. The cubs' fierce expressions melted. Their eyes stopped glowing, but lit up with a different kind of light. Joy, trust, affection. They pressed against Minho, making soft, happy sounds. Valron's purr was loud in the quiet chamber. Shakir's tail swished in contentment. Nixara nuzzled against Minho's side. Can you see it? Minho asked the audience. They can be both. Fierce when they need to be. Gentle when it's safe to be. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. They're not choosing one over the other. They're learning to recognize when each is appropriate. Counselor Vex floated forward, her tendrils glowing thoughtfully. Commander Thaval, you said the human ruined months of training. But I'm watching these cubs right now. They demonstrated the predator's stare perfectly. Nothing was ruined. What changed? Tharvel opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He looked at his cub, Nixara, who was making happy chirping sounds while Minho stroked her crystalline fur. He saw how the other two cubs had positioned themselves protectively around the human, as if guarding something precious. They choose when to use it now, Tharvel said slowly, as if realizing this for the first time. Before, they used it all the time on everyone, because that was the training. But now they understand context, Minho finished. They know who to fear and who to trust. That's not weakness, Commander. That's intelligence. A voice spoke from the crowd. Kreisha, the young Kravathi who had posted the controversial question, stood up. Permission to speak, Counselor? Vex gestured agreement. I have a question for Commander Tharvel, Kreisha said. Her voice shook slightly, but she continued. When Dr. Kang went into the toxic area to save Nixara, did you fear him or respect him? The chamber went silent. Everyone looked at Tharvel. The commander's claws extended and retracted, a sign of deep thought. I respected him. Why? Kreisha pressed. He's smaller than you, weaker. He has no weapons, no natural armor. By our traditional measures, he should be prey. But you bowed to him. Why? Tharvel struggled with the answer. Finally, he said, because he did something I could not. He saved my daughter when I was powerless to do so. That took a different kind of strength. Exactly, Kreisha said. That's what Dr. Kang is trying to teach. There are many kinds of strength. Our ancestors needed the predator's stare to survive. But we're not just surviving anymore. We're part of a bigger galaxy. Maybe we need new kinds of strength too. Other young Kravathi murmured agreement. Even some older ones looked thoughtful. Counselor Vex's tendrils glowed brighter. I have made my decision. Dr. Kang, you did interfere with a cultural tradition. This was inappropriate and caused disruption. However, you also revealed an important truth. The Kravathi tradition is strong, but it could be stronger with adaptation. She turned to Tharvel. Commander, I propose a compromise. Dr. Kang will offer a formal apology for his methods. In return, the Kravathi will allow him to establish a cultural exchange program. Young Cravathi who choose to participate can learn about bonding and affection alongside their warrior training. Those who prefer the traditional path can continue unchanged. No one is forced to change, but everyone has a choice. Tharvel looked at the cubs, at his daughter, who had survived because a human chose compassion over safety, and Velron and Shakir, who stood ready to protect that same human. "I accept," he said, "but with a condition. Dr. Kang must teach not just cubs, but adult Cravathi. If these are important skills, we should all learn them." Minho smiled. "I accept your condition, Commander. I'd be honored." 6 months passed. The cultural exchange program became one of the most popular activities on the station. Minho ran classes on emotional intelligence, bonding behaviors, and cross-species communication. To everyone's surprise, many adult Cravathi attended, including some of the oldest warriors. The cubs became something special. They were the first generation of Cravathi, trained in both traditional warrior skills and emotional bonding. Other stations heard about them and requested similar programs. Velron decided he wanted to be a diplomat. He was fierce when needed, but had learned to read other species' emotional states with surprising accuracy. Shakir became a teacher, helping younger cubs learn the balance between strength and gentleness. His purr, once a source of shame, became his trademark. Cubs found him approachable and trusted him. Nixara chose military service like her father, but with a twist. She specialized in rescue operations, using her warrior skills to protect the vulnerable rather than just intimidate enemies. On the 6-month anniversary of the program, Minho stood in his classroom preparing for another session. Students from 4 different species would attend today, learning together. Tharval appeared in the doorway. The commander rarely smiled, but his expression had softened over the months. "Dr. Kang," he said. "Or should I say Professor Kang? I hear the Galactic Alliance is making your program official." Minho grinned. "News travels fast. They want to implement it on 20 stations next year." Tharval entered the room and stood beside him. "I was wrong about many things. I thought fear was the only form of respect. I thought warriors could not also be gentle. I thought my people's ways were the only right ways." "You weren't completely wrong," Minho said. "The predator stare is impressive. Warrior training is valuable. You just needed to add one more element." "Love," Tharval said simply. "My daughter could have died in that maintenance section. But she lived because someone chose to love her, even though she wasn't his species, his family, or his responsibility. That is a strength I had never considered." The door burst open and 3 teenage Cravathi rushed in, laughing.